everybody, so today I'm here to share with you guys my top 10 favorite books for 2021. So I have read 23 books since the end of September. That's when I really started getting into books again and started reading. So that was the count that I got to by the end of 2021. But today I'm just going to share with you my top 10 favorite. And these are going to be heavily skewed, obviously, in the genre that I like to read. And that's mysteries, thrillers, crime, also some investigative journalism. Those are the kind of books that I really gravitate towards. However, there's a few of different genres also thrown in there as well. So we're just going to start at number 10 and work our way all the way up to number 1. Number 1 being my favorite book of 2021. I've scooted over just so I can insert a picture of the books on the screen. That way I don't have to hold them up and you guys can just get a good look at what they look like. But I did get most of these from my library. A couple of them I bought and a few I had on Kindle. So that's just kind of a look at where I got them from. And also I have all of these reviewed on Goodreads. I'll link my Goodreads profile down below. I do accept friend requests over there, so you can add me if you want to follow along with the other reviews that I have or see what I'm reading, that kind of thing. So to start off with number 10, it is going to be Then She Was Gone. So Melanie actually sent me this book and I was very eager to read it because a lot of you had great things to say. It really wasn't until the 200-page mark where this really just hit the gas for me. So up until then, I was ready to give it 3 stars. It's not that it was a bad book by any means. It was really good. It just wasn't doing anything for me. It wasn't like an exceptional thriller. But honestly, those last pages, like I said, after you hit about 200, it just took off in ways that I could not imagine, and it ended up being one of my favorite books of 2021. So I highly recommend this one. Give it a little bit of time. I feel like it gets there. And then the next one is The Plague Year. This book honestly was a tough one. It was a tough one to finish. Honestly, probably swallowing a pair of jeans would have been easier than finishing this book because there's so much information. Like every sentence is dense with it that you really had to read and comprehend everything to follow along and where the story was going. I feel like at this point it is one of, if not the best comprehensive looks at COVID in the United States that we have. So far I feel like it's up there, top tier for books about the pandemic as far as the United States. And the reason why it was so hard to finish was not just because of how much information, which there is a ton of in that book, but also because of the kind of response that it gives you. I was so angry, I had to take breaks from it. It takes a lot to finish this book. I think it's important. I understand that not a lot of people are going to be in the mood to read this kind of thing. I just love that kind of effort and that deep dive into certain subjects. I also think it's really important to get a real understanding of why we are where we are. There's definitely a lot of other factors, and I'm sure as this progresses and as we get further into this, more things will come to light as well. But yes, this had to be in my top 10 because it's going to be a book that I think about for a long time. Next one is Heartbone. So this is, I believe, either like the 3rd or 4th book of Colleen Hoover's that I had read, and I loved it. So I related a lot to the main character in this book. It wasn't even that I exceptionally loved the love story in it or anything along those lines, although I feel like it's one of the most realistic ones. I did appreciate that. I felt like it was a breath of fresh air. You know, I don't really read a lot of romance, and kind of for that reason, I feel like a lot of them are far-fetched and unrealistic. But Colleen Hoover has a way to make it more like that, more relatable, I guess. And I loved that this was a very realistic take on a love story. And not only that, but just my very close alignment to the main character just made it a great read for me, and I love it. Next one being The Woman They Could Not Silence. I took this as a recommendation from Sarah. I saw a few people talk about it, but when she was posting different stories showing different quotations, I was like, I got to get my hands on that. And I honestly had this at the bottom of my library stack because I felt like it would take a long time to get through. I just kind of expected it to be like a slow, steady read, but honestly, I picked it up and I could not put it down. I finished it really quickly because the way she writes is just amazing. I really want to read her Radium Girls as well. I actually have that checked out from the library, so I'm very interested to read about that. But this is a very important story about women, about women's rights, about mental health, about so many different things I had no idea about. It was an amazing story, and I'm so happy that I took the time to read it. And honestly, it's a really fast-paced read as well. So the next one is going to be Ugly Love, also by Colleen Hoover. And this one was the first book I had ever read of hers, and I loved it. I honestly took the chance on it because of a TikTok, and they were talking about the correlation between the cover and what happens in the story, and I was like, I just got to see what they're talking about. It was one of those things that just intrigued me so much, and I'm so glad I did, because that story was intense. I finished that book so quickly, my head spun. And the way that she just writes, it kind of just, you need a couple days to recover after a Colleen Hoover book. And quite frankly, she's really the only romance novels I can really get into. I've tried others. I've tried other really exceptional ones that people recommend a lot, but I just can't get into them. However, with Colleen, whatever style of writing, whatever it might be, I just gravitate towards it. And she's like the exception here. So I loved Ugly Love, and it does have a bit of a, I don't know if you could call it a twist necessarily, but it unfolds in a way that I wasn't expecting, so I appreciated that. All right, so now we're in our top 5. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have already seen this already, but still, here we go. So number 5 is The Book of Accidents. It was my favorite horror book that I had read all year. I read a few, and honestly, I felt like horror would be my genre. Like, I love horror movies, and I figured that with books it'd be the same. But I'm finding with books, it's the same with movies. I'm very particular about how I like my horror stories, and some of them just did not work out whatsoever. So I loved this book. It was amazing. The concept, like just so many things. I loved this book. It was so good. And it is a bit of a lengthy read, but it's 100% worth it. There were so many twists, but the storyline did not get muddy at all. It was just so good. So good. And number 4 is The Wife Upstairs. This one gets a heavy bias in the way of just the foul language that's used. So you wouldn't know it here on my channel, but I actually swear a lot in my real life. I keep my channel pretty PG. That way you're comfortable watching it in front of your family or wherever you might be watching it. I just want my content to be accessible. But my normal everyday life, I use a lot of profanity. That's just the way I roll, always have. And it was refreshing to read a book that keeps up with the way that I think, or what I would react to, or what I would say. So I loved the heavy use of profanity, and honestly, this author, I will read anything she puts out because of that. But also, this story was not going at all in the direction I thought it was, and it gave me a good twist at the end, and I highly recommend it. And then number 3 is The Silent Patient. You guys recommended this one a lot, and wow. Didn't see that coming, like, at all. And honestly, in hindsight, I probably should have. But this one just kind of took me out at the knees, and I was like, it was one of the very few times all year where I had to reread. You know, I was like, surely that's not what's happening here. And it was. And I was just like, wow. Okay. So this really, it just, the spin on this is amazing, but it's about mental health. It's about murder. It's so many good things. It's such a good book. And I was kind of hesitant about the cover, because that's another thing with me. If I don't like the covers, I'm a cover snob. I'm just going to come out and say it. If it doesn't have a good cover, I don't want to read it. So sometimes I gotta talk myself into it, or I get on the Kindle where I don't gotta look at it all the time. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but I don't know what it is. But like, if the cover doesn't pull me in, I don't want to ever look at it. So I don't love the cover on this one, but it is so amazing I looked past it because it had me hooked, line, and sinkered. Number 2 is Turtles All the Way Down. This is the book that kicked off reading again for me. It is what got me out of not reading for so many years and back into it. I devoured this book in less than a day. I believe it was like in a 4-hour car ride. We were picking up our air conditioner. Back and forth, I read that book and I finished it. That book did a lot for me. It is about a girl who struggles with OCD. I have OCD as well, and I have never seen my type of OCD represented as well as I related to that book. Everyone's is different. Everyone has different types. There's so many good things about that book. I devoured it. I felt seen. I felt represented. And I don't know. It was just a beautiful story. A really beautiful story that really just hit so close to home. And I love John Green, and I need to read his book that he came out with last year that I got a first edition signed copy of for Mother's Day that I still haven't read. I need to read that this year. Just can't say enough good things. And my number 1 read for 2021 was The Best of Friends. This was a Kindle Unlimited that I just downloaded on a whim. I was like, okay. I read maybe the 3 sentences of the preview that I could read on the Kindle, and I was like, sounds cool. Downloaded it, and oh my gosh. I don't know why more people don't talk about this one, but this book had me feeling so many different things. It is a thriller, it is a mystery, but at the same time, and it also does involve crime, but even though that is an important part of the story, it's not like the whole thing, if that makes sense. It's not like the main focus. And as a mother, the fact that the book itself is centered around mothers and their different point of views. It's about 3 best friends, their 3 sons, and something happens. I don't want to give too much away, but it's all from the mother's perspectives. And there were so many things in that book that as a mother just wrenched my heart in a million pieces. And it was heartbreaking, yet warming, yet surprising. There were so many different things about that book that just kept me in it 110%. I think it is an amazing, underrated book. I highly recommend it. I'm not sure if it's on Kindle Unlimited still. Let me check real quick for you. I actually still have my Kindle sitting here because I just got done with my favorites of 2021. But yes, it says it's still on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that, it's free on there. Even if it's not, I would buy that book in a heartbeat. It was amazing. Now, be aware that book, like the other ones, have trigger warnings, content warnings. Please look into those. If you're struggling with things or you don't want to read about certain topics, make sure that you give those books a look up, because I don't think there's a single book in there that is just easy peasy lemon squeezy. Especially with The Best of Friends, it's centered entirely around child loss. So just make sure that you understand the different trigger warnings and content warnings. Those can be really important. There was a Colleen Hoover book that I really wanted to read because a lot of people love it, but somebody, thankfully, one of my followers reached out and said it's about recurrent miscarriages. I'm just not in the position to read about that because I myself have gone through that and I just have no interest. So to protect myself, I look into things like that, and I want you guys to be vigilant as well because, reading is supposed to be helpful, an escape to ease anxiety or tensions, or, just to give your mind a bit of a break. You don't want it to be working harder, bringing up different things. So yes, those are my 10 top books for 2021. I'm very excited for 2022. My goal for the books to read that year are 40 books. That being said, it doesn't matter if you read 1,000 books or 1 book. A reader is a reader. Doesn't matter if you read occasionally. It doesn't matter anything at all. Don't worry about it. It's not a competition. Reading has done so much for me. It has eased my anxiety. It's the reason why I fell back in love with it. It has been amazing for me. It's been a really, really great coping mechanism, just something that I get to enjoy, and I'm just so happy that I found the love for it again. But don't let it get away from you. Don't let it be a competition or feel like you need to read X, Y, and Z to be, good enough to have a Goodreads or a conversation with somebody about books you're liking. Doesn't have to be like that. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys would like to see more book content. I was thinking about maybe doing like a monthly wrap up of all the different books that I had read, and then at the end of next year do something like this where I pick my top 10 books. And I will also, like I said, have my Goodreads linked down below in case you want to read any of my reviews in depth. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below what your favorite book of 2021 was. And like I said, if you would like to see any more book content from me, just let me know. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.